Brett Bean. BrettBean.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brett Bean, and I'm going to do a quick breakdown, 4 videos of how I would attack a character design. So the first step that I'd like to practice on is, and get you mindful about, is designing with purpose. So you'd want to come up with your own set of a couple words or a phrase or something that you want to go with, so you can go from there and you can judge yourself on the competency of, did you accomplish what you set out to do? If you don't have any goals, you're kind of just sketching, right? But if you have specific goals, what you're trying to do is design with purpose. And that's kind of the point when you are practicing, is to kind of move towards something, so you know if you hit the mark or not. Especially if you're working on a production or you're going to make a character design for your own story or something, you're already going to have a series of words and thoughts regarding who that character is. So let's start off with that. So I'll see you on the drawing board. Okay, so what I've decided to do is just sort of pick 2 things that juxtapose. It's a good practice to kind of put 2 things together that don't normally go together, and kind of see what you can come up with, especially if it's just a design exercise and not something that's actually for a client or for yourself. So I've chosen Devil with a Heart of Gold. I chose that because, one, you don't need a lot of clothes, and a lot of people understand what a demon or a devil is, and the Heart of Gold is like the opposite of what demons are usually known for, which is mischievous and evil, or those sort of more macabre words. So we've chosen Demon, Devil with a Heart of Gold. So this is Sketchbook Pro. I do a lot of my sketches in Sketchbook Pro. I'm using a MacBook, and here I'm just sort of planning out the overall shape design of this first character sketch. I take a lot of my design work when I first do it, like my writing, where the first pass is basically me explaining to myself, and I'm putting in as much detail as I need. Now, if this was a client work, I'd make sure that everything is explained enough to where the client can understand the basics of my design. If you don't give them the visual communication, it's going to be very hard for them to understand or approve or say yes to something. So to me, it's visual communication is key. But on the first one, especially since this is for me, I'm really just trying to do the first draft is like explain to myself my idea. And then every design after that is explaining my idea to an audience. So that's kind of how it goes. Because I don't have the idea in my head and I'm kind of working on it as I go, I have to explain it first to myself. You can see I start to, this arm was in the wrong position and starting to almost look not good in that region. So I quickly sort of go in there. You can notice that for most of all of my tutorials, I kind of draw over instead of go back with the erase tool. I'm trying not to be precious at all, because that's not the point of this part or exercise. And what I think is, when I'm trying to do a finished drawing, I tighten up. So if I just sort of scribble and not worry about it, it's much easier not to get bogged down with that fear and that worry to make something like finished and done. So right now, that's enough information for me on that first design where I can go, oh, okay, that's enough information. I got this character down. I actually kind of like that first one. And then now I'm trying to do, what I do is I try to do the opposite. So I'm like, well, if I've got this extreme, how far can I go to the other extreme? And again, I'm doing this for myself to say, all right, Brett, you did this design. Why do another 5 versions of basically the same thing? What can you do that's pretty different, and see if that kind of can work out? You know, do you make the whole head part of the body, and change all of the segmentation of who this character is, and just sort of mess around? You can see I'm at scribble stage, and I like to stay there because I try not to be precious with the work, and it's really about explaining to myself the design first. And I know that as you build up your characters and you build up your ability, you start, what it really is, it's practice, but what you're doing is you're starting to trust yourself that you can meet the end goal. So if you do a wrong line or you do something else, it's not really a concern. That's like an ego thing. But once you get past all that stuff, you're just like, oh, I'm going to make something that explains it, and I have faith in myself that I will get the end result that I want. This is me kind of doing two different versions of horns, just to kind of, again, play with, hey, Brett, what looks best to you? If I was doing this for a client, it wouldn't be, hey, Brett. It would be, hey, client, you're the one paying for this. Which do you think is the best? At the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Is if it's for a job or for production, what you're trying to do is be a problem solver. And the problem that you've been given is to solve this character design. I went and changed these teeth because it went from dopey, dorky, best friend, and so with the big oversized teeth and kind of jutting out from his lips, it just that little tiny change. I think there's a lot to that to make his teeth a little bit more functional, and he's just happy-go-lucky kind of demon. I kind of like this one too. I've changed tactics with my pencil tool to my pen tool, just to kind of break up so I don't keep trying to do the same thing. And I use my pen tool and I cut shapes out a lot more than with my pencil tool. My pencil tool is usually used for outlines and stuff, but you can see I kind of cut with the pen tool more. I don't know why I do that. It's just a natural thing that I ended up gravitating towards. That's just why I change it up, is because my hand pattern changes when I do that. I like sculpt it out a little bit differently. So this is me kind of just messing around. How close the eyes are, how big the eyes are. You know, I'm trying to make this demon devil cuter, because demons are not traditionally cute. And this is where I started to come up with a little backstory to the character, and thinking about, oh, what sort of storyline would this be in? What sort of world? Is it real world? Is it all make-believe? Are there humans inside this world? Is it all just mythological creatures? And again, I'm changing up the horns again and making them almost like cat ears. Maybe they can move up and down based off of personality. And so I'm just putting in enough information. You can see I've got all these sort of dirty lines and stuff in there. I'm just saying, all right, something around here. Okay, something over here. There's going to be hair over this way. I kind of had a point at the beginning that no matter what the creature was going to be, the demon was going to be no clothes. But then I also vary that as well. I couldn't tell which side to put the tail on. So I kind of put it back and forth, and kind of I'm still not sold on that one. But not everyone is going to be the one I choose, so I try not to dwell too much. But I like the little tiny hair strands. So each one has something that I relate to, or say, ooh, that was on the successful side for what I am trying to accomplish. Right? Not everyone's going to be a banger, but, and here I'm trying to make one a little bit more on the female side, and even more cartoonish, and see how far I can push something until it's like, oh, that's broken, or that doesn't work. So this is going to be even more extreme to this little tiny, basically like a happy thumb with eyes and a face, and more thinner pointed horns. And again, if you're doing this project for yourself, you can do this wild variation of stuff. If you're doing this for a client, or there's sort of a style guide and you're doing characters that live within a universe already, of course you'd be adhering to what the shape language is, or what is going on already in the world. Or if they have environment designs and they all look like real world, you're not going to be designing characters like this, right? So depending on who you are, what things you gravitate towards, whether it be animation or live action or whatever, you can still do a series of designs in your style, and it will still translate, because all of these movies and these TVs and these comic books and video games and board games and everything, they still, all those premises still work. If you said Demon with a Heart of Gold, but it's going to be live action with a couple of actors, and then it's going to be an all CG character, you can work within those parameters. Your shapes are going to be different, but you can still explore in the exact same way. You're just going to change what your shapes are going to look like. So this is me using the pen and sort of really harrying her up, and making her a little bit more Muppet-esque than Demon. In my mind's eye, I'm kind of thinking about color, but I also know that with every design choice, when you go to the next phase, things will change. So things won't always stay the same. And then what I like to do is I like to grab a big flat brush and really make something shape-wise that I would never make in any other way. I can't make the same lines this way. It's a flat tool that actually sometimes upsets me because it's not perfect, and it sort of makes weird things that I'm like, I don't know if I really like that shape. But what it does is it forces me to think about the design in a new sense, instead of the way I would normally do. Because we gravitate towards certain shapes, we gravitate towards certain looks, we gravitate towards certain things as designers. And when I use this flat brush, I can't gravitate towards any of my normal shapes. So it gets me out of my comfort zone. And the worst case scenario is you get a bad drawing. I mean, that's a first world problem, right? So what I do is after I get that, then I sort of put the opacity down at 50%, and I sort of just draw on top of that and try to find something in there. You can tell again, horns were a big deal, at least from my mind in this design. So you can see 5 different attempts at what the horns might look like. If it was for a client, that's one of those things that would be a full discussion with them of what horns feel right. You know, they can say, oh, I like the body of number 1, but I like the horns of number 4, and then you go and make a Frankenstein monster. So a lot of production is problem solving. So if you think about your character designs as solving a problem instead of having a portfolio piece, you will get more out of that. One, you'll get a better design, and your headspace will be in the right place to make design decisions that are based in what you're trying to accomplish. Because if you just make like a drawing that's good and you go, oh, that's a good drawing, you sort of end up stopping and going, okay, I don't want to screw it up. I don't want to go further than that. But what you're really trying to strive for is, how do I solve the problem as best as I can within the parameters, the deadline, and the time you have to devote to it. That could be based off of hours that they give you. It could be based off of a deadline that you have arbitrary. It could be just you only have a couple hours before you got to go pick up the kids. It could be so many things, right? So within those parameters that you make for yourself, that's the important part. This one is actually very reminiscent of a kid I knew in Portugal, and I ended up kind of making him a demon child because I kind of personally kind of thought of him as a demon child. He was a crazy kid. And so a lot of that comes out where I'm thinking of him, and I'm starting to put a little bit more clothes where it's almost like, oh, maybe this is like a demon Jungle Book sort of feel to this kid, where he loves going off into the real world, even though he's not supposed to, because he just has a sense of adventure. So as you work, you sort of push yourself into story moments. I didn't like the drawing of his face. I thought it was too familiar to one of the other ones. So I know in my mind's eye I didn't want those little tiny dot eyes, but if this was for a certain aesthetic or a board game or something like that, you could play with all of these things. Normally, I would do about 20 or so designs, so you have a good enough section of choices for either yourself if you're making, your own design decisions, or for a client or a group of people, that there's enough stuff there to have a full conversation to say, how far is too far? What is not pushed enough? What shapes do you like? So you need that variety to sort of be there so you can play around with it. At this point, this is where I start to really get silly and sort of say, okay, what if this was just totally overgrown, Tarzan-esque Jungle Book Mowgli sort of feel to this demon, and sort of really play off of like his sense of adventure, but at the same time keep some of it recognizable. And that's the thing I wanted to get at, is how do you change the parameters of what demon means, but at the same time, what are the iconic things that people relate to? And that could be anything, right? It could be from an animal. There are certain things that each animal has that you think is iconic that you need to place in there, or else it doesn't look like that animal, or a certain shape. It could be the same thing as, medieval, warrior has certain shapes and connotations to it, and then you mix it up with sci-fi. There's certain things that you blend and mix, and that's up to the designer. So you want to pick things that have something that people can recognize, and how do you change that to where they go, oh, I get it, but it's different at the same time. So it's a tough balance to do, and then you just kind of play off of those things. And then I did one as a pass to sort of quickly explain, depending on the age range, what you do is you can just age up your demon. So this is more about me just sort of making them a little bit bigger, a little bit more that sort of a little bit more adult animation thing. I'm using the thing from the draw book, just sort of doing the basis of the design in the way that I break down the body shape. This is more of a traditional sort of all-encompassing design, and all you're really doing is changing, the feet into hooves and giving it a tail. But I would build all of my characters like this and sort of just go, oh, okay, let's mix it up. I'm thinking about story now even more, and saying like, oh, okay, this is a character that lives in a universe, and so maybe it has like some rings and some like not a belt and stuff, but I wanted the character to kind of be as simple as possible, but maybe there's a little bit of human stuff in it. And I still liked the broken horn, so I added that one. Also because the character probably goes against archetype, that he doesn't have a lot of friends within his community because he is, a demon with a heart of gold, and actually just wants to help people. And so he's got a broken horn that sort of is a metaphor. And those are the kind of things that you think about as you're designing. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to go check out the book Draw. Brett Bean Breaks Down the Art of Drawing by 3D Total and Brett Bean. Thanks. Brett Bean! BrettBean.com!